Hello everyone, this is Earth Science teacher Tim Martin, and in this video we want to take a look at the phases of the moon. Anyone who's observed the moon will recognize the moon changes in shape throughout the course of the month. Let's take a look at some images of this. Sometimes we may see the moon like this. A few days later, it gets a bit larger and larger over the course of several weeks. As the moon changes in shape, we can see different features on the moon. Eventually, we'll come to the very familiar full moon. Then, just as it got bigger, it will start to grow smaller over the next several weeks. About a week after full moon, we'll see the moon illuminated this way, and then it continues to get smaller and smaller until we have just a thin amount of the moon visible. These different shapes of the moon all are named. We'll start off with the new moon. The new moon is not visible from Earth. When a small, thin section of the moon is visible, we refer to this shape as the waxing crescent. As it gets larger, we have the waxing first quarter. It continues to get larger as the waxing gibbous moon. This takes about 2 weeks. The fully illuminated disk of the moon is referred to as the full moon. Then, going in reverse order, we'll see the waning gibbous, followed by the third or last quarter, and the waning crescent. The word waxing refers to the moon increasing in size, and the word waning refers to the moon decreasing in size. Keep in mind the top line takes about 2 weeks, and the bottom line takes about 2 weeks. To go through the cycle of the phases of the moon is approximately 1 month. Oh, yes, that's 1 month. So, how does that work? This occurs because the moon is in orbit of the Earth. As the moon orbits the Earth, it gradually gets to a point where we can see more of the illuminated side. When the moon is totally opposite the sun, that's the full moon, when we can see all of the illuminated side. Now it's starting to decrease in the amount of illumination that we can see. When the moon is back between the Earth and the sun, we can see none of the illuminated side. You'll notice this diagram is not to scale. This picture is one of the very few images that was ever taken of the Earth and the moon together in one camera image. Taken by the OSIRIS-REx spacecraft on its way to visit an asteroid, here we can see the Earth on the left and the very small moon in the upper right. It's worth noting that the Earth and moon are very distant from each other. In fact, it's approximately 30 Earth diameters between the Earth and the moon. Let's take a look at the phases and their positions with a little more detail. The new moon occurs when the moon is between the Earth and the sun. Now, frequently, it's not perfectly lined up. Remember, the moon is much further away, and the sun is even further than that, so it's difficult to put them all on one slide. Over the next week, we'll see the waxing crescent phases, starting out as a very thin sliver, gradually increasing in size over the course of a week. Notice the crescent phase occurs when there is an acute angle between the sun, Earth, and moon. When there's a right angle between the sun, Earth, and moon, that's the waxing first quarter. As the moon is increasing in size, we'll see 1/4 of the moon visible from Earth. As the moon continues its journey around the Earth, it continues to increase in size. Over the next week, we'll see the waxing gibbous phases, going from quarter to nearly full. Full moon occurs when the moon is on the opposite side of the Earth from the sun. At this point, we can see all of the illuminated side of the moon. As the moon continues its journey, there will be another week of the waning gibbous phases. At different points, we'll go from nearly full to nearly quarter as the moon decreases in size. Notice that the gibbous phases occurs when there's an obtuse angle between the sun, Earth, and moon. When the moon gets back to a right angle, between the sun, earth, and moon. This is the waning third or the last quarter. Again, we can see 1/4 of the moon. As the moon continues its journey, there will be another week of the waning crescent phases. As it decreases in size, the sun, earth, and moon form an acute angle. During this point in the moon's orbit, we'll be able to observe crescent phases of the moon. Approximately a month after we've started, we're back to a new moon, when the moon is between the earth and the sun. Again, I want to refer to the fact that this diagram is not to scale. In this scale, you'd expect the shadow of the moon to land on Earth. But because of the great distance between the Earth and the moon, and even greater distance between our system and the sun, these shadows often don't line up. When they do, that will form an eclipse. We'll take a look at that in another video. Have you ever noticed the dark side of the moon? It's worth noticing the Earth shine. Anytime we have a crescent shape to the moon, it is possible to see Earth shine. This occurs when there is sunlight reflected from the Earth to the moon and back to Earth. Sunlight hits the Earth, bounces up to the dark side of the moon, and back to the Earth, allowing us to see the dark side of the moon. Earthshine was first explained by Leonardo da Vinci, figuring out that when we saw the moon, we were actually noticing reflected light from the sun. One of the other things I enjoy watching the moon is to try and see how small of a moon I can observe. The smallest moon I ever photographed was this one on the 17th of November in 2017. Here the moon was just 1 day or 24 hours away from new. Just above the trees, do you see it? The very thin crescent. The moon was nearly aligned with the sun as I took this photograph just a few moments before sunrise. I'd encourage you over the next month to go out and take a look at the moon and see if you can notice the changing shapes and phases of the moon. Thanks for watching, and I hope you'll watch some of the other videos of how the moon moves around the Earth.